tradition this day and age to read any good news on the newspaper page. And love and tradition of the grand design, some people say is even harder to find.
So let me just break it down real quick, because actually I'm going to do a quick deep dive into stats. I know normally we just cover the numbers, but I've got some other interesting information as well. So active single family homes, Santa Clara County right now, 604.
Correct.
604. So active condos and townhomes, we have 275. So total 879 units.
I was off a little bit.
That's it. Pending, it's just lock and step, right? So we're right at about a month's worth of inventory. Here's the interesting thing. Average days on market in Santa Clara County for single family homes, 16 days.
Makes sense.
Condos are 17. List price to sales price ratios. Countywide average for single family homes, 105%. So for people out there,
family homes, right?
Yes, single family homes, they are averaging 5% over the asking price countywide. Condos, townhomes, 104%. So, I mean, right behind there. Couple interesting things to note. Sunnyvale and Santa Clara are the highest with list price to sales price. They're about 10% over. So right now they're getting
I've been preaching that about Santa Clara.
Yeah, and you have. And then for condos and townhomes, the hottest pocket is Cupertino.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
My concern, because we have a couple condos specifically that we just can't get them to move, and they're already priced below the market. Now, Mountain View, Scotts Valley, I know those are, bookends of the area and stuff.
Give you $1 million for it.
I was going to say,
are you up to $1 million now? I told you to write it up.
All right.
I mean, I was going to say they're moving, but maybe there's some.
One of them, Scotts Valley, were pulling off and putting it into a rental.
Yeah.
Is that because the owners want a certain number that they can't get?
Yes.
So it's not that they're not moving.
It's not the buyers. It's the owners now just being stubborn.
Right. I mean, the seller's not getting the number they want. I mean, I think the interesting thing right now, it's a transitional market, right? I mean, I know that we're still seeing things move off the shelf real quickly and everything, but there are those properties. It used to be anything you put on the market would fly off the shelf. Sure. So we all agree that there are also some of those properties that are just sitting there.
I said that a couple weeks ago.
So I think in some of those situations where you don't have the prime areas, prime property, that the seller's expectation is I'm going to get 110% of the list or 105 of the list. I'm going to get my multiple offers, right? You got the buyers who are like, I'm going to have to go compete against this property. All of a sudden the property doesn't sell in 2 weeks. Everybody kind of panics. And then buyers are starting to say, what's wrong with it?
Yeah.
I don't want it. It doesn't have multiple offers on it. There's got to be something major wrong with that property.
Or I want 15% off.
Exactly. And then the seller's on the other side saying, wait a minute, what happened to my multiple offers? I priced it expecting a higher price, right? Yeah. And that's not happening. So I think, there is that kind of going on. And that's part of the transitional market, right? With the non-prime type properties. And they're out there.
I agree with that. I mean, I've heard you speak to your clients. I know how you run a listing presentation and everything. I feel like all we can do as agents is guide them to the right price point to start out marketing. But again, it's like you said, the property is going to sell no matter what. If they're stuck on a certain price point and they want it and they can't get it and they're not willing to budge and go down, there's nothing that we as agents can do about it. And as a buyer's agent, that's when we have to guide our buyers and tell them it's not the home. It's not the home. It is just the price point they're looking for.
In any market, the property will sell for fair market value. Period. That's all we can do is we can put it out there, market it the best. I mean, obviously you got to put your marketing, put all those best efforts forward. But at the end of the day, within 2 weeks, generally, if it's in Los Gatos, within a week, we're going to know what that fair market value is. Yeah. Right?
Well, and to remind, the fair market value is not a Zestimate. It's not an appraisal. It's whatever the buyer.
You mean it's not a Zillow? It's not a Zestimate? Come on, man.
Whatever the buyer is willing to pay is market value.
That's a great point, because one of the arguments I had with my client, one of the discussions I had with my clients was, that they had an appraisal done. And the appraisal was done back in February of this year. And that appraisal, I'll just pick a number. Let's say the appraisal came in at $1 million. We list the property at $900,000. We wind up getting $900,000, $910 on the offers. The seller says, I'm not selling for anything less than the appraisal. Well, what's an appraisal?
It's one person's opinion of value.
It's an opinion of value.
At a moment in time.
So I tell the seller what we tell him. Listen, we put it out through marketing. We had over 150 people through this property. There was no shortage of activity. Here's where the fair market value is today. I know you did your appraisal, but the appraisal is nothing more than an opinion and value. The seller comes back to me and says, but I talked to the appraiser, and the appraiser is adamant that that's where the value is. My response was, well, then that appraiser should come and buy the property for that $900 or $1 million.
Yeah, it's a deal. And then also, does that appraiser have a real estate license? How many homes have they sold?
We're in the trenches every day selling 100 and some odd homes a year.
Yep.
And that appraiser probably hasn't sold a house in their entire career.
I mean, appraisals, I would say in the last year and a half, 2 years, we've seen them sway heavily from appraising properties well over, I think, what the market value is based on homes and stuff, and now to there being more safe and secure. And
there is a lot of challenges we have in our industry that I do not agree with.
Yeah.
One of them is appraisals, and I'll tell you why. I think the only honest appraisal is if you're simply out of the blue going to get a value for your property. Maybe that's for a refi, but even we know on a refi, that's going to be a conservative appraisal because the appraiser doesn't really have anything at stake, right? But I'll say it, how asinine is it that we give the appraiser, what's the first thing we give an appraiser when they go out to value a property?
Well, comps a lot of times, right?
They get the purchase contract. They know before they go to the property exactly how much their target of that value needs to be, because if they don't come into that value, they're going to have a buyer who's going to be upset. They're going to have a seller upset. So they're already given information on what that value needs to come in. And how is that non-partial? How is that a neutral situation?
Right. And not only that, I mean, they should look at, maybe an appraisal versus a desk review. And, there's ways to, versus just having one person that might have woke up in the morning hungover, didn't want to work, or fighting with their spouse.
How many times over the last few years when the bank started using clearinghouses, right? So they'd bring somebody from Sacramento to, I'll use Los Gatos for an example, and they'll see, 95032, and they're going to pull up comps from 95032, not knowing that there's a part of 95032 that's not in Los Gatos schools. So they'll take a property that's in the non-Los Gatos school district, comp it out with all the ones in Los Gatos.
To Lester. It's like one street away, isn't it?
Yeah, well, Lester is a cutting, but it goes all the way up to
that's what I'm saying. Like you can have two homes on two different sides.
100%.
Exactly two different price points sharing a backyard fence.
They totally are, 100% like that. So, I don't really buy too much into the appraisal. So anyways, when I get a pushback from a client saying, I'm not selling it for less than appraisal, I'm like, well, the appraiser does nothing. That's an opinion of value just to protect the bank. And there was a time, to your point, where they did the desk review in addition to, they'd have a secondary appraisal going out there. So they got a couple opinions plus what the contract reads. So
and maybe something to tell the seller is like, okay, hey, well, let's get another appraiser out there right now and see what they think it's worth today. Right?
Great point.
So, all right. Well, Ben, what'd you bring today, man?
Well, real quick, while you're talking about the stats.
Look at my stats.
Well, I want you.
We
spoke of something in the office earlier about, and again, I think it's a good segue from the stats about the refinance and ARMs.
So
you wanted to start on that.
Your topic is stealing my topic.
No. I want to add something. I want to talk about the stats compared to what you're going to bring up.
Gotcha.
Now.
Okay, so for the past couple of podcasts, we touched on what's going on in the commercial market, right? You have the short-term loans that are getting ready to, recast, reset, call it what you want. And this is nationwide, and it's going to cause some pain in the commercial market. But we are now starting to see that on the residential side. So, granted, most people, when rates were low, locked in 30-year fixed. However, there were people that did 5, 7, 10-year ARMs, especially 2018, 2019. And so, for instance, I happen to know for a fact there's about 850 homeowners in San Jose whose adjustable rate mortgage is getting ready to adjust within the next 6 months. And so, you're taking that 2.5% interest rate, and, they're going to be in for quite the payment shock. And what do you do? Because you might not even be able to refinance. You'll probably have to stay in that adjustable rate mortgage because you don't qualify income wise on today's rates. So what was your question?
So when you look at 2018, the market then, and why people were getting ARMs compared to why, again, 2020, end of 2020, 2021, 2022, the start of it, people started getting more ARMs or not getting ARMs because the interest rates were already low. They were in the 3s and down. Now in 2023, we're seeing everyone get ARMs again because the interest rates have come back up. Lenders are saying 5, 7 years from now, we're going to come back down, refinance then. In 2018, I was not selling in 2018. I looked up a stat in 2018. There was over 17,000 new listings to come on the market in the year 2018. In 2023, we're right above 6,000 halfway through the year, so way less than 50%.
Sure.
What was the market like in 2018 to where everyone was buying ARMs then?
Well, because a lot of times...
Because inventory is obviously high then.
Right. A lot of times people said, hey, I don't plan on being in this home for 30 years. I can save a little bit of money, do an adjustable rate mortgage. Could be a lot of different reasons.
I wouldn't say it was that much of a different market, though. There wasn't a huge overabundance of listings. 2018 was still a very tight market.
Yeah.
So prices were real high. People had to do adjustable or IO, interest-only loans, to be able to afford those payments. And to your point, now that they're blowing up, I mean, it's interesting. My question would be is why didn't those people refi during the boom of refi and stuff, because now they're stuck with those higher interest rates. And that's going to be interesting, because if they're on that fixed income or they're a salary job, that's not going to offset the 40% increase in their home payment.
Well, and that's my thought is, if we are well below 50% of what it was home-wise in 2018, what's to say that all these people coming up on their arms aren't just going to go and start selling their homes?
Well, they have to.
So that's actually,
is that the increase that we see?
That's people that I will be reaching out to over the next 6 to 8 months, just to educate them, right? Because this is a little bit, I've heard other people on other podcasts and shows talk about, their payment's going to double or triple. Well, not necessarily true, because adjustable rate mortgages and the initial adjustment they have a cap. And it's usually about 2%.
Right. But also look at when you mentioned 800, right? That sounds like a big number, but in reality, it's not that big. I mean, San Jose's got, San Jose itself, you're probably at 1.6 billion or million people in there, right? I mean, so it's still a drop in the bucket, right?
Correct. It's not going to create some flood of inventory or anything like that.
Right.
But those people are going to have to do something, right? There's going to be a percentage of those people who, did the adjustable just to get in.
Yeah.
Income hasn't changed.
Well, to your point, I think what's going to hit is you talked about the commercial, but it's also the investors who have those rental properties where, again, they got into a duplex, they got it as an IO or an adjustable rate type of scenario, and now that rate's going to go up. It's an investment property, so they're not going to have the same favorable programs they would on a primary residence. Right. So I do believe that the investment type properties, along with the commercial across the whole states, we're going to see some interesting things happen.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, because on 2 to 4 units, maybe they're cash flowing now. Once they have to refinance, right? Yeah. Because most of those are like doing 5, right? It doesn't go. It doesn't just.
And I would challenge if they were cash flowing. I mean, unless somebody put 50% down on it.
Right. So now they're going to be even more of a negative cash flow, or going from a small positive break even to a negative.
Right.
And then if they try to sell, the cap rate's going to change, because back then the cap was different, because you're
right.
So it's like you said, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. My guess is if the investor can swing it, they'll probably take that negative over the next year and a half, knowing that rates are going to drop.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm remembering now being back in 2018. In 2018, at that point, it was kind of like the height of the market. 2018, because things were going up and up and up and up. And I can remember being like, we had that dip in 2018, and then when COVID came around, we were saying, oh my gosh, we're seeing prices just like they were in 2018. So 2018 was a very robust year for sellers as well, right? So, I mean, it's interest rates, all that stuff. I mean, I know we're seeing some incredible transactions and activity on our transactions happening right now, but I'm still conservative to see what's the next 12 to 24 months going to bring.
I am predicting a slowdown, right? Just like we saw.
Slowdown on what side? What do you mean?
Well, yeah. So, when rates jumped up June of last year and our market stopped from June to January, I think that's coming again, because the Fed is going to raise rates again this month.
Yep.
And it looks like they're probably going to do a 0.25% interest rate hike for the foreseeable future, which is unfortunate, because I think they should just pause a little longer to see what the longer term effects are. But that said, rates right now are in the 7s. And so does that mean by the end of this year, we're going to be in the 8s?
Yeah.
And I tell you what.
See that big of a price decrease if it does hit 8 with our inventory level?
I don't know that we will see a price decrease as much as we will continue to see gridlock, where people just aren't selling, because unless it's a life event.
As we've said, our area is recession resistance. We're not recession proof.
Sure.
So the longer that we continue to have these things hit us, ultimately it's going to hit us. I mean, it's going to take us longer than the rest of the nation, because there's so much equity and so much money in this valley that people can offset that.
Yeah.
But there's no way that if we start hitting 7.5%, 8% on like conforming type products, which I don't know, that's pretty aggressive as far as on the high side, it's going to impact. I mean, I think we're seeing it now. This is the first time, and any time we've had any of our inventories in the last 5 years, and granted, I'm using these 2 examples, Things haven't sold at a number that we thought we sold them in, and we were pretty aggressive with our pricing on it, right? Right now I'm sitting there going, well, is it kind of the June gloom that we're just not getting the activity on these properties with July 4th, the holidays, all that stuff? Or is it that the entry-level buyer is being impacted right now, and they're going to stand back a little bit and hold off? And I think we might start seeing that threshold of pain that people are saying, okay, I mean, even people with money are starting to say, as I say this, I mean, we just had a house here in Los Gatos, no views whatsoever, on about a third of an acre, sell for $7 million. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? I mean, we just had, 9 offers on our property. I mean, I had Bill Lister, shout out to Bill, stop by. I saw him over at Double D's last night, and he goes, thank you so much for driving values up in our neighborhood for the property we just sold on
Barbara.
On Barbara.
Yeah,
right? 1.96 we got for that thing?
Yeah.
Is that what we got? 196?
It's funny. I did the open house there. There were 3 people that walked in that open house that said it was going to go between 195 and 2 million.
See, and that's crazy.
So
let's put it in perspective. What's the square footage on that?
1,400 square feet. It was a rental property for years.
I rented it out.
You rented, Ben when he was at Forbes rented it out.
Yep.
Very basic, not upgraded at all. No
AC,
backyard, no AC.
It's hot.
I mean, I thought it was going to sell 1.7 to 1.8.
Yeah.
And then almost $2 million.
I know.
$2 million.
Yeah. I mean, another, I think, learning lesson pricing, thing that you need to look out for too, not to jump topics here, but I'm pretty sure you guys heard as well, State Farm is out of California and Florida.
Yeah. I think Allstate.
State Farm, Allstate.
Yeah.
And then there's one other insurance company that just came out and said they're limiting the amount of policies they write per year in California.
Right.
So as a buyer going into these homes and buying them, you just want to make sure you're, again, like you do an agent, a lender, just cross-check your information with other insurance agents out there and try to find the best one, because premiums right now are high.
Oh, they're nuts.
And there's a crazy stat. There's 60% of the homes in California are underinsured right now.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. Which is why when fires come and all that stuff, everybody gets hit so hard.
Well, how would you like to be a State Farm agent right now based in California?
Well, how does that make sense? Okay, so obviously the premiums raise depending on the price point of the home.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So State Farm taking themselves out of California as a whole, they're gone in Palo Alto.
Well, let's look at why are they making that decision? Because
fire hazards.
No, not necessarily. California's putting a limitation on how much they can increase their premiums. They're not letting basic business happen where it's like, okay, I'm going to increase my liability here. I should be able to increase my premium. Mm-hmm. California's saying you can't increase your premium. And they're like, well, wait a minute. I'm increasing the liability here hugely, but you're not letting me be profitable by doing that?
Yeah.
Forget about it. I mean, I don't blame them, to be honest with you.
I think, do you think it's going to last forever? Like they're gone forever?
No, I mean, everything cycles. Somebody else will come up.
Well, and let's kind of the fact from fiction, there are still dozens and dozens of companies that insure homes in California. Correct. And the, I don't know if it's the government or the state, they actually have an insurance program as well. Yeah. It's more expensive, but it's out there. So it's not like, I don't see an average home's going to pay $7,000 a year for insurance.
Well, it's interesting. Like Heather just bought her house down in Morgan Hill, $4,500 for insurance. Mm-hmm. And that's a, 2,500 square foot home, small lot, newer construction. It's not in a fire hazard zone. So I think more importantly, it's just the agents doing their due diligence to be advisors like we are to educate the buyer that, listen, here's an additional cost. Mm-hmm. Be aware of it.
Well, not only that, but especially first-time home buyers when they're calculating debt-to-income ratio.
Yes.
Right? Because lenders have always used kind of, $200 to $300 a month max. Right. And then now, hey, that could be double, and that could be enough to push them out of, the parameters to qualify for a home.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, doing the small amount of research I did on that, just quickly, three items that are most uninsured in a home right now. Earthquake insurance, which is surprising.
Well,
it's not surprising. Yeah. No, nobody has earthquake insurance.
That's what I'm saying. So no one has it. But again,
but you know why nobody has earthquake insurance? Because the deductible on earthquake insurance is generally 10% of damage. So the way people look at that is, unless if you have a house that's not bolted to the foundation, something in built in the 1800s, brick construction. That's why we had all the damage up in the Marina District, up in San Francisco when the epicenter was way down here in Santa Cruz, right, Loma Prieta area. You have to have 10%. So if you got a house, the average house now is $3 million. The improvement cost is probably $2 million on a property like that. Mm-hmm. You'd have to have $200,000 in damage before earthquake insurance kicks in.
Oh, so it's not even a point to have it.
That's the issue, right? So unless there's a major catastrophe where that house is coming down, there's a hell of a lot more problems we're going to have if a house like that collapses.
Who are you guys' recommended insurance agencies?
I mean, I only care if it's a national brand, rated. There's ratings on insurance, just like any investment scenario, right?
Yep.
And you know, you got to look at your coverage. To your point,
Yeah.
You know, we have properties out in Austin, Texas that we're all investors on, and you know, their insurance doubled, right? So those properties we bought were like $900 to $1,200. Now they're going up to $2,000. So I get a thing in the mail from another insurance company saying, "Oh, we can insure for $900." Well, you look at the coverage, you know, and it's like, oh, for $125,000 replacement dwelling cost. I mean, that's where a lot of times people just focus on the price they're paying, not the value they're getting, right? Yeah. The premium of it, to where you got to look at that, and somebody who's not, and that's where the buyers need people like us to advise them through that. To where, listen, I mean, understand that, you know, to build right now in our areas, I don't care where you're at, it's going to be $400 to $500 a foot. Easy. So if you got a 2,000 square foot home, that thing better be insured for $1 million plus, not 700. Because if it's only 700, you're putting the $300,000 out.
Yep.
But yeah, I understand earthquake. Not to jump on your bandwagon there, but
no, I mean the other two were broken water pipes and sewer lines, and the sewer lines is an interesting one.
What do you mean by sewer lines? I mean,
like sewer lateral.
Sewer lateral.
Okay.
Which again, I mean, if that thing busts, you're up shit creek.
Are you saying that there's coverage there? It's just like for a few $1,000, or there's no coverage there?
No coverage. Just most of the homes out here just uninsured sewer lateral, which is interesting again because most of the homes I feel like now have to get the sewer lateral.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Alameda County kind of started it in our area, and then now, like, even now Morgan Hill requires sewer lateral. Did you guys do sewer lateral on Heather's house?
No.
Yeah, it's a requirement.
Is it in Morgan Hill?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I represent, or Heather represented herself, so I'll have to educate her on that.
But no, seriously, it has to be certified.
Yeah, you're not even allowed to transfer water in Morgan Hill unless you get the sewer lateral checked and the previous seller transfers certificate.
Well, maybe they did do it.
Yeah.
Huh. They must have.
That first condo I closed this year in January just finished the
so
sewer lateral.
What I love is, as many years as I've been in the business, I learn things every day. I didn't know that you actually could have insurance for a sewer lateral.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because what's a sewer lateral run?
The inspection?
5 to 10, no, 5 to 10 grand?
Yeah. It's $5 to $8 grand.
Okay.
Is it? I thought it was a little more, but
it depends on the system and what they have to do.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd put that against a claim on my home.
Well, what's interesting too is now that these cities are requiring sewer lateral inspections, we're finding out a lot of homes don't have cleanouts. I was doing I put an offer on a house actually in the city of Alameda, and they went to do the inspection, the sewer lateral, and they're like, "Hey, there's no clean out. We can't inspect it."
Not to get too messy with this, but what is that? What is that? What are the ramifications of that?
Yeah,
if you don't have a clean out.
Yeah, if you don't have a clean out and your house overflows, the whole house.
You're digging the whole thing up, and it's going into the house, right?
Yeah. It's pretty bad. So you know, a lot of interesting things, and again, that's why. When people say, well, I'm just going to, you know, work with my cousin Johnny, who is a real estate agent part-time, right? And hey, you know, people do it all the time. You know, I don't want to hurt their feelings. You know, I really want to help them out. Well, you know, there is a reason why working with active and experienced agents, 100%. Right?
We've always said this. Matters. I mean, a home is generally the highest value asset that anybody owns, right? I mean, to me, it's the same as like having a doctor or an attorney. You want to go to the best in the business, right? I mean, not somebody who just got their license, somebody who just had their first operation or their first lawsuit. Deal with somebody. I mean, these are huge assets that they're dealing with, and who you work with matters.
And what's kind of unique about our industry versus some of those other ones is that typically, unless somebody's severely discounting commissions, you're not paying more. Right. I mean, here we are, a team of 5 sales agents, 3 full-time staff, and other support staff. And people pay the same amount as they would paying an agent that's only been in business 1 year. You are preaching to the choir, bro. You know, I'm dealing with a situation, as you guys know, where I'm dealing with a bunch of attorneys right now. And we have attorneys that are charging $950 an hour. And there's other attorneys like, you know, that'll charge $250, $300. You might depend on, you know, that might explain their experience level and who you get to the table, right? Where in real estate, somebody like myself or you that's been in this business 20 to 30 years is going to cost you the same as some kid who just got the real estate license out of a Cracker Jacks box. Exactly.
You know?
So, and I get it. We all got to start somewhere.
I do too.
Right. But at the same time, like you said, it's the most important asset that most people own.
100%.
Just do your homework.
Yeah.
Interview at least 3 agents. Hopefully we're one of them.
I mean, think about it. If you got somebody on your side who's just the nice, warm and fuzzy, you know, niece Barbara who just got her license, and she's going to help make everybody feel warm and fuzzy with their residential sale and stuff, is she really going to be that negotiator you need to?
You want a pit bull,
yeah,
right? Like be fluffy and fun and nice on the front end, but you better be a pit bull when it comes to negotiating. You know, and also, you know, going over disclosures and inspection reports, right? And you know, and because I've seen a lot of agents be like, it's not a big deal. I see that in all the home inspections.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
You know, but in reality, it's like, well, hey, actually, it may not be a big deal today, but if you don't take care of this over time, you could have really expensive ramifications.
Well, that's why I don't want to say I laugh, but I find it very frustrating when I have a client, you know, you got a $3 million property, which is pretty much normal around here, call even $2 million. And they're like, well, what are you charging for commission, right? And everything's negotiable, it's cool, but then you get down to where it's like a 0.5% difference.
Yeah.
Right? And they're like, wait a minute, okay, you're talking a $10,000 spread here, where one slip of the tongue at that price point could cost you $50,000 to $100,000, right? I mean, it's just...
Yep.
It's a frustrating conversation we constantly have to educate not our clients, but new clients on.
Yep. No, for sure. All right. Cool. So, you know, talking about, we're in a really interesting economy right now because inflation, prices are still up. Now, inflation isn't rising at the rate it was before.
Correct.
Right? But, I mean, all of kind of those alarm bells are starting to sound, right? So consumer debt's at an all-time high. Car payments, car repossessions are increasing. You know, credit card debt, interest rates on credit card debts. We're seeing interest rates on mortgage. Everything's high. Fed's still raising rates. Job market's slowing down, but they still added 205,000 jobs last month. Yeah. So what's going to happen? Oh, and the reason why I bring that up is 14,000 homes in Santa Clara County are behind on their property taxes. So it's all these kind of canary in the coal mine things.
Yeah.
And they don't want to admit it either.
Yeah. Well, but this is really interesting though. So 14,000, and that's doubled over the last 6 months, right? So 14,000 people plus behind on property taxes. Now, it takes 5 years, right, to do a property tax sale.
Yeah, and I think in Santa Clara County, they don't even do them. There was years ago, their habit was not to do that.
The last time they did one was 2020.
Right.
Right.
And that had to be a very extreme situation.
Yeah, probably. But however, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but this is important for consumers to know. If you are behind on property taxes and you get more than, say, 2 installments, which is about a year behind, your bank has the right to go in and pay those taxes on your behalf and then add it to your mortgage and then make you pay the monthly going forward.
Right.
So that's where people get into trouble. You know, when people say, are they going to do a tax sale on my house? Absolutely not.
Right.
But can your bank, especially if it's a big bank, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Chase, they can go in.
Well, they're going to protect their asset, and they don't care where you live. I mean, they're a national bank, right?
Exactly, and they did that a lot when we had the 2008, 2007, 8, 9 kind of downturn. So for people that are behind on your property taxes, you do have options. But no, if you drag your feet too long, you could be looking at a mortgage payment that could potentially double, and you have and you have no say about how that goes down.
So to your point with this, right? I mean, we've seen our area cycle. We cycle. I mean, you go back to 1920. We've always cycled. For decades, it was a 5 to 7 year cycle, right? We've been now on this cycle since 2011. So we're 12 years into this upward cycle. Question: are we going to continue through that quantum leap, or are we going to have another shift?
I am not a gloom and doom person, but I think 2024 is going to be rough. I mean, 2024 is going to be rough because we're going to see at least 3 or 4 or 5 interest rate increases this year, right? And the Fed's always behind. So even if they pause, they're probably not going to start dropping rates until middle of next year, once we get closer to the election. And by then, our country will be in a full-blown recession. So I think 2024 is going to be a year of pain.
It just depends on what side of the fence you're on, right?
Well, yeah, and there's always opportunity.
Oh, that's why I look at it.
Yeah,
I totally look at it.
Yeah, I mean, it's but you just need to know where the puck's headed.
Yeah.
Right.
If that is the case, again, to all the buyers who bought homes, if you can make $200,000 in a year or 2 years on your home, good for you. Congratulations. But the mindset buying a home is the 5 to 7 year plan still. We as agents always, again, guide our buyers to know job security and find out what you're comfortable paying per month. Because if we do see that correction or the rough year and it starts to come down, ride it out and let it go back up. I feel like a lot of people, you bought in 2019, 2020, you saw your friends make $100,000, sell their home, buy something else. It's not always like that. That's very rare.
All they traded was one house to another house. They didn't really make that money.
But when you look at the market and you think to yourself, oh, our property is not at value anymore, we're not going to be able to get what we bought for. It's only been 2 years. It's a long-term play out.
Right. And I think I'll end it with this because I think we're getting a little long here, is just because we enter into a recession doesn't mean it's going to affect house prices. 4 out of the last 6 recessions, home prices actually went up. So, you know, keep things in perspective, right? Even though the job market might be tightening, stock market might be going down, 4 out of the last 6 recessions, home prices actually went up. So,
okay,
always a good investment.
There you go.
All right, guys, that's it.
Take care.
See you.